everyone. Welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer this week. And this is going to be the astro weather for the week of April 13th through the 20th, 2025. Excited to be back. We've got a wild week ahead. We've got a lot of stuff kind of going on. I'm going to be helping you kind of navigate the lunar transits and all of the other planetary transits to help you make sense of what's going on in the cosmos and kind of get the astro weather for what's going down this week. I am going to be highlighting this week's transit with Mars re-entering the sign of Leo. So we're having a little bit of deja vu, and we have a little bit of fire that's also going to kind of help pick the week up as we're experiencing a lot of water trines. If you like my content and want to see more of it, make sure you click the bell button below, subscribe to the channel. It really helps the channel grow. It'll also give you alerts as to when I'm here. I'm here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday using tarot, astrology, and the Sabian symbols to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. Make sure you give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Drop me a comment below and let me know, where is Mars transiting in your chart now? What are you gearing up to kind of go and do? Are you making time for play, for romance, having fun? And how are you guys navigating with some of these water trines? Are you feeling the waves of emotions? I'd love to hear from you guys. All right, well, obviously this is your weekly astrology forecast for me. This week to me feels like a little bit of like cosmic whiplash. There's a little bit of kind of getting sloshed around with some of the water trines, heavy emotions, and then also we see some fire stuff that's going to be picking up as well. So lots of emotional depth, definitely some fiery shifts, and we're going to be seeing major transformation towards the end of the week. Now, we're going to see the moon kind of move through moody Scorpio, definitely stirring up some passion. Actually, on Sunday, as you guys are waking up, you're going to see the moon leave Libra and go into Scorpio. Throughout that transit, we will see lots of aspects that are going on with trines to planets in Pisces, as well as the North Node. So that's going to really amplify our intuition. Great for emotional healing, kind of purging and kind of cleaning some stuff up. We will also see Mars, like I said, reemerging back into the sign of Leo. So this has been a storyline that's been going on really since the fall and the end of 2024, when we saw the Mars retrograde get ready to kick up. And then in December of last year, we saw Mars turn retrograde at the beginning of December in the sign of Leo. So there can be this sense of igniting, new beginnings and getting really passionate and excited about things, but there's going to be a little bit of intensity right out the gate. We are coming into now at the end of April, the final Mars-Pluto opposition. So if you think back to what was happening around the beginning of November 2024, also around what was kind of going down at the beginning of the new year, around New Year's Day, we have seen two Mars-Pluto oppositions already. So this is the third one that's kind of brewing right around the end of the week. We're dealing with it at the end of April. So definitely, as that opposition looms, time to buckle up. You guys are going to be feeling it. But let's go ahead and break this down, kind of talk about what's going on. I just want to touch on some of the themes of Mars first, obviously re-entering into the sign of Leo, just to give you guys a little bit of context. So it won't be until the 17th this week that we see Mars return to this sign. And for the first time really since about January of this year, we see Mars going into a fire sign. So just to kind of play catch up, the last few months Mars has been in Cancer, very sensitive, lots of, rehashing the past, maybe some of us dealing with home and family matters, healing the past, and also feeling like we really just need to kind of uproot ourselves from whatever has been holding us back or whatever has been bringing some frustration or where we've kind of felt stagnant. So the retrograde has been over, but now we're actually going to start to see Mars move through a fire sign, which I think is actually going to be a lot easier to navigate. This is really, I think this whole process has been really pushing us to kind of confront our inner fire and really asking ourselves, where have we dimmed our light? Where have we been holding back from our own personal joy? Where have we been maybe neglecting the need to have fun, to be spontaneous, to kind of follow our heart's desire, to play, create, fall in love, all of the things that Mars likes to do in this particular sign. So for some of us, it can also be that we've been kind of reevaluating where we've been chasing, I think, validation over authenticity. Themes included obviously reevaluating creative projects in this sign, leadership roles, as well as our romantic desires. Then we saw it dip back into Cancer in January, very much turning within in this sign, even more so than retrograde. And like I said, kind of stirred up some family dynamics for some people, definitely some emotional security threats that have come up, and really kind of looking at where we've had some varied frustrations in our lives. So now that Mars is like storming back into the sign of Leo, it's really time to act with courage. It's all about really reclaiming the stage. This is about expressing our unique spark. So I do expect confidence. I do expect drama because obviously Leo placements definitely bring the drama. But definitely I think this is about really pushing us to shine. Just watch for the ego clashes that can happen, especially in kind of group dynamics with Pluto and Aquarius. There can be a sense of, are we overdoing it? Are we overreacting? Are we kind of fighting for the spotlight? So if you want to know what this means for you, I have already created a Mars and Leo video. I did talk about the Mars retrograde, but at the end of this video, I'm going to be showing you guys where Mars is re-entering into this sign. Give you guys some themes, some predictions, and some tips for what to expect and also how to navigate it without kind of getting tangled up in some of the trauma drama that's going to happen with the opposition to Pluto. I'll probably do another video on that specifically as we get closer, but unfortunately, we do see, because Mars is about anger and it can be about passion and it can be about action, it can be about heat, flames, it's in a fire sign, dramatic acts of passion. The opposition to Pluto in Aquarius is where, collectively things are blowing up, or we're seeing explosive situations, or we're seeing things that are impacting groups. It can also be about political rivalries. It can be about tension that's connected to war and disputes. Obviously, we've seen a whole slew of things happen, but the beginning of November of 2024 was quite intense, as was the beginning of January of this year. We saw a number of car explosions. We have seen, unfortunately, in crowd type situations, that there has been some dangerous kind of scenarios that have played out. Mars is also about weapons, and it's in a sign that is connected to casinos, theaters, stages, where there's plays, where there's events, where there could be also younger people or like artists and kind of performances. And Pluto in Aquarius represents a crowd, okay? So a lot of this is going to be about situations where there's people going out at a venue, or people going to like a sports kind of arena, or people who are going to be in a loud crowd, and that there can be some really significant heated tension. So look alive, kind of keep your head on a swivel a little bit the last 10 days of the month, because we are going to see this intensity kick up. Obviously, I hope I'm wrong. I'm touching wood on this one, but with the last two oppositions, unfortunately, we did see some of this stuff. So just be aware when you're out around crowds of people. Okay, guys? So Mars is going to be entering into Leo. So that's good, because we're going to see it actually get into a sign where it can be a little bit more, dynamic. It can definitely take the initiative, and it's going to be a little bit more loud and proud. However, it won't be until Mars leaves about 6 degrees of Leo that it's going to move out of the post shadow. So sometimes on like the back end with the retrograde, we see things kick up in a very big way. And it's kind of like the sparks in the finale of whatever tension has been brewing throughout the Mars-Pluto kind of opposition for the last several months. So we can start to see some of the shadowy effects that are still kind of happening. We can still see some unexpected events. We can also see that this is kind of like the turning point where we're reflecting on where being too combative, too hostile, maybe creating too many problems in group dynamics has actually created problems, and now we're trying to diffuse that. So it won't really be until closer to May 4th, 2025 that we see Mars leave the shadow. Definitely impacting my Leo placements, Sun, Moon, and Rising. Any placements between about 0 and 7 or 8 degrees, you have been in the direct kind of line of this retrograde. And Mars coming back into your sign is great, but knowing that, Mars can be about cutting, heat, blades, things like that, we're still within that time that's like, watching out for injuries, not being reckless, not speeding, not being too hasty, not letting our ego being what's driving us, right? That's the kind of stuff that we really want to watch for, because we can still see some stuff kick up on the back end. Also, if you happen to have a chart ruled by Mars, so if you are in Aries or a Scorpio rising, actually this week is good for you in a way because Mars is actually going to be going into a sign where it can be a little bit more dynamic. However, you want to be mindful that Mars is being challenged by some of the T-squares. So if you're not a Aries or Scorpio rising, maybe if you are the first 5 degrees or so of the fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, you're definitely going to be feeling the impact of the square. So just kind of keep an eye on that. Look at your chart. This is where it pays to know what's going down. And we will see Mars in Leo all the way until about mid-June. So around the 16th of June, 2025, that's when Mars will leave this sign and it's going to be going into Virgo. So we might do like a second look at this at some point down the road. Just know that with Mars going into this part of your chart, yes, it's going to kind of get challenged right out the gate, but I do think it's going to be beneficial for really kind of letting our hearts lead the way, focusing on where we're most passionate, what we enjoy, where we can have fun, where we can have more romance, take chances. And I think it's going to be so much easier to navigate than when we had it retrograde in Leo and when we had it in Cancer. So let's go ahead and take a look at the week ahead. We're going to be starting with today. It's Sunday, April 13th. Happy Sunday to those of you guys who are part of my Sunday crew. I hope you guys are well. If you're new here, basically, you got a whole slew of people that always like to hang out. Let us know what kind of coffee or tea they're drinking, what their morning routine is like, and they always drop in and say hello. So become a part of the Sunday crew. Start hanging out with us for my Sunday service. If you guys are checking in with me on Sunday morning early, you're going to be seeing that the moon is actually going to be ingressing, leaving Libra. It's going to be going into Scorpio. Okay, so 2 things here. 1, can we get like a full moon check-in? How are you guys doing after the full moon in Libra? How you feeling? All right, that was yesterday. So we saw a full moon in Libra at 23 degrees. So this is kind of feeling like a major turning point, a make or break turning point in relationships. Full moons are kind of conclusions, completions. It was at 23 degrees, so it feels like some of us are just finally throwing our hands up in the air saying, I can't work with this person or be in this dynamic or be in this relationship. Or some of you guys are going to find that you have had some kind of reckoning over the last week, that you have realized what you do love, what you really value. Some of you guys are strengthening bonds. And last night we also saw Venus go direct right after the full moon. So Venus is direct. Yay. Mercury and Venus are both direct. Guys, all of the planets are direct. Okay. This is good news. Yes, Mars is still in shadow. Yes, Mercury is still in shadow. Yes, Venus is still in shadow and it's conjunct Saturn. But come on, we got to take the wins when we can. So can we get a hallelujah for that? That was a tricky full moon. I'm filming this before the full moon, so I don't even know what's going to happen. I just know that the opposition that we saw to the sun in Chiron, especially with the exalted sun here, really shows us that like relationships can't be 100% if we've got somebody who's wounded on our team, right? Teamwork is very much Libra. So Sun Chiron's been bringing up our personal wounds, insecurities, head injuries, migraines, allergies, other issues that have been coming up where, you know, whether it's physical or it's emotional or it's our ego getting in the way. If we're not doing our self-work, that is definitely going to impact our relationships. You know, some of us will have partners come to the rescue and we'll see just what relationships are made of. But like I said, Venus stationing direct, Venus conjunct Saturn in Pisces, this has been a really defining moment over the last couple of days where we're realizing whether or not something is going to pass the test physically, financially, emotionally, and spiritually. So lots going on. I preface this because until this moon leaves Libra, we're still in the full moon energy. So if you had some drama going down last night, it's still kind of lingering today, all right? The moon is not only coming out of the opposition with the sun and Chiron, really shining a light on individual healing matters, but it's also in a square to Mars, and that was kind of building overnight. So thank goddess we didn't have that kind of going on most of today. But still, there's still some frustration in the air. There's a little bit of tension there. But at least now Venus is direct, so she's no longer retrograde. Hey, great. She's in a sign that she's exalted in. Awesome. She is conjunct Saturn, so it almost feels like big things are happening now. Like we're making big commitments. We are making commitments about relationships. Maybe we're signing contracts. We're making big financial decisions. There's big financial turning points and conclusions happening. And this is whatever's going on in the micro is also going on in the macro. So something to kind of think about is that after the full moon, this morning the moon is squaring Mars. We're still feeling a little bit of tension, right? Especially because the moon is kind of connected to Mars, Cancer, and it's in opposition to the sun. After this particular transit, then we're going to see the moon ingress into Scorpio, which is always intense because the moon does not necessarily do as well in this sign. Essentially, it's the setup, right? It's like, oh, major conclusions and things happening with, relationships and other people. And then we also see the square to Mars, where there is a lot of conflict and agitation. And then boom, moon goes into Scorpio. We're dealing with some kind of emotional crisis. We're purging, we're clearing something. And the moon is going to come into a square with Pluto, which happens to be one of the rulers of Scorpio. So not only is the moon in friction with Mars, connected to Scorpio, but then it's going to come into a square with Pluto. Woo! Well, I feel like once the moon is in Scorpio, we always have to look at where is Mars and where is Pluto, because these two planets rule that sign in terms of traditional and modern astrology. We now see Mars and Pluto within about a 5-degree opposition. Like I said, Mars is going to go into Leo this week, and then we're going to see that brewing opposition. So you're going to want to put on your thinking caps, go back to what was happening at the beginning of the year. Think like maybe the 30th of December through like the 2nd of January. What intense situation back and forth? What was happening there? Where was there some drama? Where was there a power struggle or some kind of conflict? Something happened. You might have deja vu. You might see some similar stuff, or we're finally moving on from whatever happened in that dynamic. So what you guys need to know basically is that with that Libra moon first thing in the morning, squaring Mars in Cancer at dawn, this is sparking some emotional friction or assertiveness in relationships. Sleep in, okay? If you're like waking up around 10 or 11, and you're like just watching this, you're going to be like, oh, thank God I slept in, because it could have been a bit of a fierce morning. That moon shift in the afternoon is really, it's intensifying feelings. And I feel like this, with the square to Pluto in Aquarius, this is really stirring up some power struggles and also some deep transformation. Obviously, like I said, the Mars-Pluto opposition is kind of brewing, and this square is hinting at the tension that will be coming about, couple days from now, right later in the week. So really Sunday for me, in a nutshell, with some of these squares, like even if you miss the one in the morning, you're going to see another one that's going to come through in the mid-afternoon, and then it's going to kind of ease up later in the day. So Sunday in a nutshell for me kind of feels like there's going to be some emotional clashes. You're going to see this, it's going to come up, but I feel like those clashes are coming up to really help us deepen more so into being able to do something with the intensity, to transmute the intensity, to make major transformations, and finally kind of deal with some stuff that we have not wanting to be kind of looking at. I think the Libra moon, especially early in the morning and coming off of the full moon, because sometimes we have a full moon and it'll play out for, about a week or two. It doesn't have to happen that very day. The tip here for you guys, I think, is about balancing diplomacy with honesty in the morning. If you want to, iron some stuff out before the moon goes into Scorpio, try to be diplomatic, really lean on that Venus conjunct Saturn. I would recommend it. Because I feel like as we get into the evening hours, there is going to be intensity with moon square Pluto. There's going to be intensity also with the moon continuing to go through a Martian sign. PM on Sunday, later tonight, is going to be better spent doing some reflective work, doing some journaling, maybe doing some shadow work, something that is going to be about releasing this feeling that we need to control whatever is changing or happening in our lives. We need an outlet for it, okay? So this is then going to take us into what's going to eventually be Monday. So that will be the 14th. Moon's going to go through Scorpio overnight. We wake up in the morning on the 14th, and it's not really making too many aspects on Monday. So that's interesting. As the moon goes through Scorpio, we are going to see finally it's kind of coming out of the square with Pluto. We're also going to see that it's not, like I said, it's not really making any aspects with anything. So Monday kind of feels like a day where things are a little suspiciously quiet. Sun is still in Aries, all right? So with the sun in Aries and the moon in Scorpio, this is a very Martian type of day. There's intensity, but it's kind of like simmering beneath the surface. What we will see is that Mars is going to be forming a trine with Mercury kind of overnight into the early morning on Monday. I feel like that's really great for, keeping our emotions and our words aligned. Perfect for deep conversations. Like Sunday night, if you can approach things in a tactful manner, you can have a deep transformative conversation, but that does kind of bleed in into Monday. We will also see throughout the day that the moon will eventually come into an inconjunct or a quincunx with Jupiter. And that's going to be later in the evening hours. And for me, that's kind of like Jupiter and Gemini, we might feel overstimulated or kind of misaligned with our priorities. And with the moon going through Scorpio, it's like we're feeling a lot of feelings. There's a lot of stuff that's kind of brewing, but we don't exactly know just how to express ourselves, how to talk about it, how to find the words. Not the most ideal day, obviously, for communication in my mind, especially as we see Mercury sitting at 29 degrees. It's kind of like a critical turning point. Till Mercury leaves Pisces, we're kind of navigating things more, like I said, intuitively. We're paying attention to our dreams, our gut feelings, what's kind of coming up for us with the signs and the symbols and the omens that we're seeing throughout the Sunday kind of Monday period. I do feel like that Scorpio moon is definitely amplifying our intuition. And so that kind of matched with Mercury trine Mars, maybe we are taking action in a much more intuitive way, or we're listening to what our emotions are trying to tell us. But I kind of feel like this is where, basically Monday night going into what's going to be Tuesday, we're going to feel a lot of watery things because we're going to see that Scorpio moon kind of pick up and make some aspects to other planets. So staying on Monday, focus on what matters most, all right? Really follow your intuition. Know that as we get later into the day, we might feel a little scattered. We might feel a little distracted. Trying to get as much done earlier in the day is my recommendation. And know that because the moon's not making too many aspects, we may not feel as productive. We may feel like we're still rehashing some of the stuff or the drama that went down over the weekend. Maybe we were thinking about a conversation we had with somebody. Maybe we are kind of reminiscing about something. Maybe we are still kind of in our feelings. So this does not feel like the most productive Monday to me. Still show up, do the work, do what you got to do. Don't get too scattered. Use the morning for emotional clarity and also creative work if you can. Avoid overthinking, avoid gossip in the evening. And I would really focus on meditation. While like Mercury is still conjunct the North Node, I feel like Monday is a great night to meditate, rest, relax, maybe go to bed early, have a solid nighttime routine. Mercury at 29, pull a couple tarot cards, do some divination, do some journaling. Once we get Mercury kind of moving back into Aries and away from Neptune later in the week, we're going to feel a lot more assertive and dynamic when it comes to communication. Now, this is going to take us into Tuesday, which is going to be the 15th. And when we wake up in the morning on Tuesday, the moon is still in Scorpio, but it's making a whole lot of aspects. So we will see a grand water trine on Tuesday. So pull out your marker, circle Tuesday, make a point of going, emotional day, or going to be feeling some feels today, pack some Kleenex or something with you, because I feel like we're definitely going to feel this. The moon's going to continue to go through Scorpio, and it's going to form a trine with Venus, Saturn, the North Node, and briefly also Mercury. That's a lot, all right? So, whenever you're dealing with water signs, these are things that are kind of more subconscious. They're hidden, they're intuitive, and also it's about conclusions and completions, like all of that. Pisces is the end of a situation. Scorpio is like the fear and the panic and the paranoia and like not wanting to let something go. And then Pisces is like, we're just going to release this and we're going to start over. So first things first, make sure you bring your hydration with you on Tuesday. Make sure you have a water bottle. Make sure you're drinking your hot tea. Make sure you're using your electrolytes, all of that stuff, because hydration is going to keep everything kind of moving. This also means if you have the opportunity to spa, sauna, swim, be by water, by a lake. If you don't have those things, right, can you do a meditation listening to some waves or some music that's going to have like running water? Can be very helpful because Venus is about like music and instruments. Music can help move emotions. Water can kind of help move emotions. Great day to just clear it all out. If you have an ugly cry on Tuesday, I'm not going to be surprised, but it's going to be very therapeutic. So we see all these trines between the moon and planets that are going to be in Pisces. We also see the moon is going to be in a trine to one of its ruling planets, Mars. And Mars has mutual reception. So, they're both moody, basically. Moon in Scorpio is just really private and processing something, and it doesn't want to, be vulnerable. Mars in Cancer is a lot of the same way, but it's more going to be about actions and emotions. And both of these are getting kind of tempered by Saturn, which is basically saying if we can, Venus, Saturn, Mercury, North Node, be compassionate, be understanding, be kind, be willing to make certain sacrifices for the things that we value or love the most, be willing to kind of share with people, what we've been feeling. Also giving people space, right? Trying to maybe be a little bit more tactful and understanding and forgiving. I think that's the key here. So this is like a big day for forgiveness. This is a big day for healing. Very watery, very emotional. The only real challenge that I'm kind of seeing is that we are going to see the moon come into an inconjunct or a quincunx with the sun and Chiron, which is friction. This is where, on a personal level, maybe we're dealing with some crisis or healing event, or we're going through something where we feel like the oddball and it's kind of rubbing the moon in Scorpio the wrong way. And we will also see the moon make an opposition to Uranus. So that's definitely going to be bringing up a lot of emotional destabilization. So basically, in a nutshell, for Tuesday, the grand water trine is very dreamy. It's going to create this intuitive flow. It's perfect for healing, creative breakthroughs, or some kind of spiritual alignment. The moon's opposition to Uranus, on the other hand, in Taurus, it's going to spark some kind of sudden change and also some financial surprises. There will be financial surprises going on this week. You guys will see that with the moon in opposition to Uranus. You will see that also now that Venus is going direct conjunct Saturn. It's a lot of people who are fearful of what's going on with literally global economic, and trade kind of themes, right? Mercury is about trade and business. Saturn is about limitations and borders and relationships with other countries. Is very Venus, Saturn, and Pisces. And honestly, this is about a dissolve of what has been the global order. I know a lot of people are freaked out right now. Okay, I'm an astrologer. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a stock trader, at least professionally. I am not a economist, but I can tell you guys that Venus conjunct Saturn, especially with the sextile to Uranus, makes me feel incredibly enthusiastic that even in spite of people getting freaked out about what's happening right now, this dissolving and reorientation needs to happen. And it's going to happen before Saturn and Neptune come into Aries. And that's also going to be about reimagining what it's going to look like for individuals, how we are going to potentially be able to be more pioneering, more independent, more of a can-do attitude, and I think a lot more opportunities for people when it comes to businesses. Particularly Aries is going to be manual labor jobs. It's going to be things connected to steel, to metal. It's also going to be about military. It's going to be things kind of connected also to like blue-collar workers. So we're going to see a lot of new buildings and developments that are going to be happening in the United States specifically. And that's where I live. So that's what I'm looking at. And jobs that are actually going to be coming for Americans. So this is not me politicking. This is literally in the United States chart. You're going to see Saturn, Neptune, where I was saying 2 years ago on my channel, this transit's about the United States rebuilding the foundation of the country. So that's what's happening. But guess what? Pisces says we got to kind of wipe everything away before we rebuild. And I know people are freaked out, but I'm telling you guys that the end of this year, particularly in the fall, things are going to be looking pretty good. So I'm not really worried about it. I feel like more fear perpetuates more fear, perpetuates more fear. We've got a lot of people who are listening to and watching things and assuming things. And if you watched my Venus retrograde webinar, I talk a lot about how these cycles are going to be heavily connected to what has gone on since 2008. As well as since about 2001. And if you know anything about the financial world in those times, that's when we had the dot-com bubble bust with all the internet development and everything going on. And we also had the 2008 kind of housing collapse issue. And to be honest with you, a lot of economists are agreeing. So I'm glad to hear that they are agreeing, because it mirrors the astrology, that a lot of what's happening right now is as a result of not letting the banks fail, bailing the banks out. There's also been a lot of stimulus money and things that have been going on in recent years. This is a correction, okay? So Venus Saturn is about being conservative. It's about being careful. It's not jumping into, oh my God, this is the end of the world. I'm going to sell everything, or I'm going to buy everything. It's about being conservative, cautious, waiting and seeing, right? Like there was supposed to be this big freak out that's kind of happening, end of March into April. Then we're going to be getting into like May, and we're going to start to realize like, why did we freak out about this? And things are going to start to stabilize. So don't do anything crazy in terms of some of your like financial stuff. Just pump the brakes, give it a little bit of time for it to stabilize. You guys will start to see that things will get better, I believe. Purely looking at the astrology. I think the other thing you're going to want to watch is on Tuesday, you're going to see that, after the opposition to Uranus and Taurus, which could cause some market volatility, especially with the inconjunct the Chiron and the Sun in Aries. As we get into the nighttime, the moon is going to trine Saturn, and then we're going to see it come into a trine with Mercury. So this is going to be moon trine Saturn, emotions stabilized mid-afternoon, moon trine the North Node. Yes, we're getting a little freaked out about stuff, but the things that are kind of ending or concluding need to happen. And then we're going to see the moon come into a trine with Mercury. This is getting into the PM hours. So on Tuesday night, watch your dreams, especially with Mercury at 29 and the moon trine. We might find that there is a lot of clearing or a lot of healing that's happening in our dream space. We've got 29. So the moon is also in a trine with Mars. So look at this, Mercury 29, moon at 29, Mars at 29. When we see a planet at 29, it's an anaretic degree. It's a kind of a tipping point. It means that something, either needs to conclude, it needs to change, or it could mean that it could be something that is like being destroyed. So I'm kind of curious to see what's happening, for a lot of people when it comes to their emotions on Tuesday night. Don't let emotions run the show. That's the best advice I can give you. Find ways to get in water, stay hydrated, meditate, relax, because it's going to feel like nails on a chalkboard on Tuesday night. I do feel like as the moon goes into Sagittarius, we're also going to see Mercury come into Aries. So that's going to be an interesting shift because moon in Sag is a little bit more bold and dynamic and kind of adventurous. And then obviously we know Mercury moving into Aries is a lot of the same. Maybe it's a little impatient when it comes to communication and when it comes to ideas, and it's more self-focused. But we wake up on the 16th with a very different vibe. It's not going to be as heavy and as watery, right? So with like moon trine Mercury, Mercury conjunct Neptune, you might feel like as you're waking up, that the answer, right, on Wednesday. I had a dream, I feel different, I feel like I'm ready to go. Like there's going to be a little bit more pep in your step. Anyway, so before I get to Wednesday, on Tuesday, emotional depth fuels intuitive leaps with all those water trines. There could be some surprises of the moon opposing Uranus. It could really test your balance. I really recommend diving into creative or spiritual practices on Tuesday night. I also feel like definitely have a dream journal ready so that way you can kind of write some stuff down that's coming up for you overnight, and then that would be on Wednesday morning. All right, so we wake up on Wednesday morning, and we've got planets that are kind of in new signs, so it's going to feel a little bit different. Like I said, I feel like we're going to be a little bit more in line. Moon in Sag is having us focus on Jupiter. Sagittarius is about growth, optimism, travel, culture, things regarding higher education. And we're still kind of picking up a trine to Mars. It's out of sign, but we're picking it up. And I feel like, whenever the moon is in Sag, there is definitely like a vibe shift. And with Mercury coming into conjunction with Neptune, it can be a double-edged sword. This can definitely be a day where we have difficulties communicating and having clarity. We, on a personal level, could feel a little lost or confused or dazed or sleepy or unaware. This could also mean that we are allowing ourselves maybe we're trying to convince ourselves that we're not the problem. Remember, Mercury is connected to the South Node, and this is about habits and health and wellness and our jobs and our routine. So you got to be mindful of mental health, your personal habits, and also anything kind of connected to where you're not being honest with yourself. Like, are you bullshitting yourself? Are you kind of telling yourself what you want to hear? Watch for that. Especially with the moon in Sag, we can be a little overly optimistic, just a little bit. But with that setup that's kind of going on, I feel like it's really positive because this is really about adventure. This is about optimism. It's about exploring new perspectives. Now, Mars, on the other hand, it's still at 29 degrees. So yes, it's very emotionally charged. Really, 29 degrees here, I think it's about tying up loose ends before it goes back into the sign of Leo. Now, with Mercury conjunct Neptune, one thing that we definitely see with that transit, regardless of the sign, is that it does blur logic. Okay, so are we missing something in an email? Did we forget to send something? Did we forget to put, an address on something? Did we have a missed kind of like meeting, or did we forget something? On the other hand, Mercury Neptune can be very imaginative. It can be about, coming up with new ideas and being creative and kind of whimsical and sparking ideas, right? Is definitely, I think, Mercury in Aries, but it's risking some kind of confusion in communication. Perfect for art, not for contracts. This is also a time where there can be some deception issues or people communicating in a way where something is not all there, something's confusing or blurry or misleading. So I don't recommend on Wednesday signing a contract, right? Booking travel, trying to do anything super logical. Like, we're going to have some better aspects towards the end of the week, but be very careful, know how to spot a scam, know what's going on, especially look at this. Mercury and Neptune are ruled by Mars, right? Because it's in Aries. So what's kind of going on with Mars? Mars is at 29 degrees. So it's saying there's a critical turning point. I feel like a lot of people who are in the process of moving, buying a house, selling a house, looking at homes, having homes inspected, be careful. Be very careful here, because there could be some stuff where we're making some rush decisions. Oh my God, everything's, going down. We're going to sell the house. No, or we're going to be moving or we're relocating. Just pump your brakes a little bit. This could also be a time where there's a difficulty expressing yourself and being seen clearly when it comes to dealing with roommates or family members or people who are in your home that you kind of share space with. Got to watch mental health with Mercury conjunct Neptune as well. I think we're a little bit more prone to some mental health challenges. And this can also be like where our emotions are getting the best of us with Mars at 29 degrees. Now, I do think that the theme here for Wednesday is that there are big dreams, especially with the moon in Sag. There's big dreams, but that's colliding with like emotional closure, right? Mars at 29. And I also feel like this day is going to be best utilized if you're channeling any of your creative kind of inspired ideas, into projects. Definitely double check the details, especially in conversations or scheduling of any kind, to avoid misunderstandings. And communication is going to get a little colorful now that we're going to start seeing, over the next couple of days. The moon, opposed Jupiter and squares some stuff in Pisces. So Wednesday and Thursday aren't really my favorite communication days personally, but we'll kind of keep moving. All right, so that's how this is going to play out on Wednesday. No real lunar aspects that you're going to see. Nothing's kind of going down other than the early morning trines to Mercury and Neptune. And then that's going to take us into the 17th. So on Thursday, we're going to be seeing the moon continues to go through Sagittarius, where I'm looking at Jupiter because that's what rules Sag. Moon opposes Jupiter, okay? So big emotions, big reactions, lots of news, global things, stuff kind of connected to shocking, surprising events might be happening. I also feel like because of the connection with Mercury and Jupiter, and because Mercury is conjunct Neptune, is there going to be some news regarding military mobilization, war? Is there going to be something connecting to Navy ships? Is there going to be some news revolving around information that's coming out where people are, maybe putting out some misleading information or blowing some kind of story out of proportion? Maybe. Mercury is still in shadow, by the way. And these two planets are at 0 degrees. This is the 0 degree cardinal point, one of the world axis points. When planets go over these degrees, shift happens, all right? We see it. So not only do we have some confusing news or information about what's really happening, but Mars at 29 in opposition to Pluto, some kind of blooming tension is kind of on the rise. And I feel like a lot of people are going to be kind of talking about that. Other than that, we're also going to be seeing that as the moon continues to keep going through Sag, It will start in the evening, picking up a trine to Chiron, which is good because this is really opening the door to healing. What did we learn about personal wounds? How can we be better? Maybe this is a good time for self-help books or anything that you want to be reading on Thursday night. And then we're going to see the moon start coming into a square with Venus, Saturn, and the North and South node. That's primarily going to happen overnight. So what can I say about this? I mean, when you see the moon square its own nodes, especially, when it's in mutable signs, it means that things are changing, circumstances are changing, and it could be for the better, it could be for worse. We call this a mutable T-square. Technically, with the opposition to Jupiter, this creates a grand mutable cross. Not exact, but by sign it is. And the moon square the nodes is fateful events, right? So we're going to see that. Moon in opposition to Jupiter, sparking enthusiasm, but really at the risk of overindulgence and feeling a little scattered. We will see the moon start to trine Chiron, and overnight it's going to start coming into a trine with the sun, which I do feel like can kind of boost confidence for some of us, but also I think it's boosting the opportunity to really be bold, take action, and heal. Overnight, we'll see the mutable square take place. To me, it feels like fated events can be happening on Thursday night around the world. It doesn't just have to be in any one particular place. We can be waking up to things that are being kind of revealed in the news on Friday morning. And I feel like when we see squares to the nodes, it's really asking us to release old patterns for growth. I mean, on one hand, we've got the moon square the North and the South node, which means we have to be bold, confident, enthusiastic about where we're going and what we're learning. But on the other hand, we've got Jupiter square the North and the South node. And Jupiter is obviously a bit debilitated in this sign. So it's like, well, are we going to believe what we're being told or what we're hearing, or are we going to be focusing on the bigger picture? So don't think too small, I guess, on Thursday night in terms of how you're kind of seeing the world. And then we're going to see overnight, Mars is going to be obviously reigniting that passion and drive as it moves back into the sign of Leo. So much stuff kind of happening on Thursday night. So it's going to move into Leo. We wake up on Friday, April 18th, and we are finishing up the moon in Sagittarius. It is now leaving the square with the North and South node, and we will see Friday morning the moon is going to enter into Capricorn. So that's interesting because that's a setup for a total vibe shift. So Friday feels like work, and work. Moon in Capricorn definitely demands us to be doing the emotional labor. This is also a difficult place to kind of have the moon, as it's associated with Saturn, and it's in the opposite sign of its home sign, its domicile, Cancer. So something you're going to notice kind of late morning, mid-Friday, is that when the moon goes into Capricorn, it's immediately going to square Neptune, all right? And so we've got 0 degree, 0 degree, 0 degree. There's a lot of new things that are playing out. Moon square Neptune can make us definitely in our feelings. It can make us kind of torn between, do we just have to show up and get the job done and focus on work? Or, are we going to be speaking out and communicating, Mercury, Neptune, how we're feeling or where we're lost or where we're kind of confused. We will also see on Friday that we got to watch Saturn, right? Because Saturn rules Capricorn. So Saturn is still conjunct Venus. Saturn is also in a sextile to Uranus still within a degree. So with Venus conjunct Saturn, Saturn sextile Uranus, that's interesting because it says, yes, some things are coming to an end, or there is some conclusion or some definitive turning points with love, money values, some serious stuff going on, especially in regards to leadership. And can it create some financial rumbles and challenges? Absolutely. But Saturn and Venus is saying, hold on, or have faith, or we have to make the necessary sacrifices right now. It could be physically, financially. It can also be major changes in our love life or relationships and how that's impacting us in terms of our self-esteem and our security. So a little tricky there actually on Friday morning. Now, the sun is in the last moments of Aries, and that's something else that you guys want to kind of think about. This is that looming square that I was saying is going to be kind of happening towards the end of the week. So you're not feeling it yet, but it's starting to kind of be the setup now. Now Mars is within 3 degrees of an opposition with Pluto, and the sun is coming into a square here, and the sun is coming into a square here. That's an intense square. I've been looking at that for a couple weeks. All right, so let's move through the rest of the day. Let's see, is there anything else that I'm missing? I don't think so. So we keep moving. You're going to see the moon continue to go through Capricorn. It comes out of the square with Neptune and Mercury by about early evening. And then it's not really making any other aspects. So for the most part, the rest of Friday is pretty uneventful. You're not going to see too much else kind of going on. Mercury's moving away from Neptune. Communication improves. And then this is going to take us into Saturday. So Saturday the 19th, Moon's in Capricorn, still looking at Saturn. Saturn's still conjunct Venus. It's like a whole week of Venus conjunct Saturn, both with like turning direct and then, Venus waking up. So there's really heavy looming karmic money and love stuff that's hanging out all week long. Not seeing too much else that's going on with the moon on Saturday, other than the fact that the moon is going to inconjunct or quincunx Jupiter at some point. We will also see that now Mars is in a trine to Neptune, which I like actually. And we've seen that trine several times throughout the retrograde. All of the Mars trine Neptunes were more in Pisces and Cancer, or they were not in the fire signs because Neptune just recently came into Aries. So this is a very different vibe. Mars trine Neptune, drive, passion, creativity, in flow with music, with spirituality, with vision, feeling like we found our divine purpose. This is like spiritual warrior energy. This is art therapy. This is, finding ways to be able to take action and move towards our dreams in bold, dynamic ways. Feeling very passionate, but also kind of like divinely guided in a way. Anyway, we will also see on Saturday that the sun is going to enter into Taurus, which is really going to be highlighting the Venus-Saturn conjunction. So technically Taurus season starts on Saturday. So happy Taurus season for those of you guys who are Tauruses. This is, it sounds funny, but I feel like it's going to be like the Easter from hell. And I'm going to show you guys why in just a second. So before you make like a ton of deviled eggs or decide to go to your mother-in-law's house, you might want to think twice. But staying on Friday, I feel like the theme here really is, sticking with the plan. With Venus conjunct Saturn, Saturday, some of us are going to have to get some work done. We're going to feel like we have to make some sacrifices and be willing to take one for the team, or maybe, put in some extra hours at work, even though it's the weekend. Certainly the moon, making that quincunx to Jupiter in Gemini, it does bring up this tension between ambition and like distraction. And I would just say, prioritize wisely on Saturday because things get a little hairy on Sunday. Mars making that trine to Neptune and Aries is very creative. It's inspired. It's great for self-expression. And that sun moving into Taurus is now a shift in our focus. Now we're going to be focusing more on stability. This will amplify the Venus-Saturn connection because not only do we have the sun in a Venusian sign, Taurus, we've got the moon in a Saturn sign, Capricorn, and both of these are side by side. Well, what does this mean, right? What does this mean? I think we're going to see a lot of people who maybe haven't gone to church for a long time who are going. Temples, churches, organized religion, sacred or holy places is Pisces. I think this is also perhaps going to materialize as some people who are having a renewal of their faith or a crisis of their faith, or they're saying, this is the last time I'm doing this. And that could mean in terms of celebration. Obviously, those of you guys who celebrate, Easter is going to be on Sunday. Easter's going to be on 4/20. That's going to be interesting. But a lot of people are going to get some extra special surprises in their Easter basket this year. But also, I think that this is going to be about the sacrifices and what we've been giving up. So it'll be interesting to see now that Easter's coming, people kind of like reflecting on, maybe what they had given up, for Lent, right? Maybe it's going to represent a different perspective that they have in terms of, going back to church after not being there for a while, or maybe taking a step back and saying, I'm not going to participate in some of, the festivities. It could be that as well. And relationship dynamic changes and all that stuff too. Certainly the sacrifices that we make for older relatives, older women, a lot of like, can you bring grandma, on Sunday? Can you go get her and drive out of your way? Would you be willing to host something this week at your house and be willing to, bring everybody in? That's kind of like Venus Saturn stuff for me. So I think we're going to hear some interesting stories there. I definitely feel like with the sun going into Taurus, and that connection with Venus and Saturn, it's just a call for serious commitments or boundary setting when it comes to love and money or relationships. So on Saturday, okay, it can be that there can be passionate creativity, that grounds into lasting value. I could see that, especially with like Mercury, Neptune, trine Mars. I also feel like this is going to really be about pursuing heartfelt projects during the day, okay? Reflecting on what brings you security as Taurus season begins later going into the evening. But you guys are really going to start to feel with that sun ingress into Taurus, the square where the sun is like trapped between pushing for, okay, more resources, more stability, more security. Let's go, 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 take chances. And it's also having Pluto beaming down on it, which is some looming kind of intensity with a group of people, with a crowd. I mean, for me, this is kind of spelling out, like, I think the beginning of next week is going to be really colorful in the market. I think there's going to be some stuff that's going on over the weekend, and that's always how it happens, right? Like news drops late on Friday, or there's something that happens globally over the weekend, and then it's like everybody's waiting for the market to open. Mark my words. The market earlier in the week when the moon is in Scorpio and it's starting to square some of this stuff, and as we are going into what is going to be the 21st, those are going to be days to watch. You're going to see some intense stuff going on. Leo is the markets. Pluto is going to represent the crisis collectively of everybody kind of freaking out, as does Venus and Saturn. And now the squares that are kind of happening to the sun is going to be about the banks. It's going to be the pressure on the Fed. It's also going to be stuff involving bonds in the bond market. It's also going to be heavily tied to like liquidity. It's going to be about whether or not there is enough resources. So things are going to get very, very, very colorful with that square. All right, so let's keep things moving. We're going to move now into Sunday. So like I said, those of you guys who celebrate Easter, I like to call Easter Ishtar. So that's the real connection there if you want to go down the paganism rabbit hole. But Zombie Jesus Day, I don't know, whatever you guys prefer. If you guys celebrate Easter, happy Easter. To me, this looks like the Easter from hell. Like I could see, especially because Taurus is about food. Taurus is about possessions. It is about what we're able to hold on to and collect. And when we have fixed planets at 0 degrees, it is the purest form of that area, like that energy. So 0 degrees of Taurus is the most, I want more, give me more. I want pleasure. It's like the kids that are like, I want all the eggs. I want all the chocolate. I want all the goodies. And then we've got Mars in Leo, which is competitive. Aries has that connection with Mars. So it can be about physical activity and running and being a little combative. And then you've got it in the sign of children, right? And what you will see on Easter Sunday, it'll be more towards the evening, okay? So like if you're like, I have to show up somewhere on Sunday, do it in the morning. Don't be doing it in the evening. Trust me on this. So the moon is still in Capricorn. And the positive here is that the moon is sextiling Saturn and Venus. So it could be a little bit more pleasant under a Capricorn moon, especially when it comes to relations, family, that kind of stuff. Maybe it's like, hey, we're actually going to keep it low key. We're not doing anything crazy. Great. But the moon's also going to trine Uranus, which is going to spark opportunity for, maybe making some changes, maybe changing the ways that we've always done things, changing the ways that we're eating, maybe celebrating, something about our resources and our values. So pretty decent aspects actually, in the morning with the moon. Early morning, it'll square Chiron. So it's going to get nipped a little bit by Chiron, but it's going to be so early that I feel like you could do something early in the day and it's going to be easier. All right. In the PM hours though, right, we're going to be seeing that the moon is going to shift into Aquarius. And this is where it's going to get hairy. So this will be, I'm on Central Time. So basically, let's say anytime from 7 p.m. Central on. So that's going to be 5 p.m. Pacific. That's going to be 8 p.m. Eastern. I know we have people all over the place, but this is where stuff gets weird. So the moon now is at a different sign. It's in Aquarius, which is about, the collective, the future. It's about groups of people. It's going to be about events, parties. And it's ruled by Uranus. And it's ruled by Saturn. Well, Venus is still conjunct Saturn. That's okay. It's direct. But the moon is going to come into, let's see, what's going to be first. It's going to come into a square with the sun where things feel jumbled. It's also going to oppose Mars, which is very combative, especially you're going to see a lot of big egos and a lot of reactions and a lot of people that are going to be kind of, very egotistical. And then it's going to conjunct Pluto. Because Saturn is connected to this, and because Venus is connected to this, and because the sun is connected to this, I pray to whatever is up there that there is not some kind of catastrophic event that is connected to a faith-based group. That's what I hope does not happen. I could look at this and go, there could be an attack or something that could happen in a church. I hope that there is not another situation where we see people who are driving recklessly and behaving recklessly and they get injured or somebody gets hit in a crowd. I look at this and I go, this is not personally like Saturday, Sunday, Monday for me is like, I would not, if I don't have children, but I would not be taking my kids out and be going and doing a bunch of stuff in public places because I've seen enough of these aspects over the last 2 years to know that when we see the bad boys of astrology square off, stuff happens, And Jupiter's also at a degree where we see things happen, but I haven't really talked about that. But there's been a lot of connections to Jupiter being kind of like in this second decan of Gemini, and it's done some stuff in previous years, or like for the last 100 years, there's been some big events happening there. So I'm not liking the square. I feel like, it's reminding me and kind of echoing what happened around New Year's Day in 2025. We've seen Tesla cars blowing up. We've seen people getting attacked, in broad daylight on subways, all kinds of stuff. And the opposition is about friction. So it brings up intensity, power struggles, conflicts over groups, possessions, and also financial chaos looming. Like people are going to be like, oh shit, what is going to happen in the market tomorrow? I guarantee that. Okay. That will happen. So this basically the synopsis of Sunday is not only could it be a all-out war, little kids are brawling over Easter eggs and food, or somebody's getting into it and getting into some kind of political debate, maybe with friends or with family, or there's going to be a lot of intensity and back and forth on the internet. But we're also going to see that it's going to have some impact, whatever's happening over the weekend, and there's going to be some kind of like financial effects from it. So the morning starts off a lot easier than the evening with that Capricorn moon, supporting with stability to planets in Pisces and Saturn. Hey, I feel like it's definitely going to be beneficial. It's going to help us be a little bit more cautious. We also see on Sunday that Mercury now is moving away from Neptune, so communication gets better. It's not out of shadow yet, but it's better. And the only real saving grace here that I see is that Mercury in Aries is bold, dynamic. It's not afraid to speak its mind. That's something I've really learned about the Mercury retrograde. That's what it's taught me. And I've had a ton of Mercury retrogrades in Aries, and I don't know if it's just because it had to go back into Pisces and then come back into Aries, or because it's been dancing with Neptune. But like, I find that it's not that I'm not filtering myself, but like, I'm not going to be super critical about what other people think as much anymore. That's the impact it's had on me. And I like on Sunday where Mercury is going to sextile Pluto in the moon. So it means that if you're feeling like, hey, I want to say something, or I want to speak up, or I want to put out some news, or I want to initiate a conversation or a contract, there could be great conversations and powerful dynamics at play where you find that you are around the right people. Where maybe during previous cycles, when you saw, Mars and Pluto in opposition, you felt like you couldn't be yourself around a group of people. You felt like you couldn't speak what's on your mind. You felt like you couldn't share, that there was like somebody or something that you had to tone it down around, or somebody that you couldn't talk about stuff. Or on the flip side, you were around people who were just very vocal about things that made you uncomfortable, right? Or things that you didn't agree with, or things that you didn't like. So, like I said, Aquarius is about the group dynamic, Leo is going to be about the individual, and Aries is going to be what actions you're doing to feel like you can have fun, you can play, you can be creative. But I'm telling you guys right now, watch the kids. There's going to be some issues. There's going to be some conflicts. You're going to see some people who are going to be getting into it with other people's kids. You're also going to see a lot of people who are going to be very passionate about values, about money, about resources. We're going to see some tit for tat for I paid for this, but you didn't pay for that, or I always do this and you don't do that. Venus is still conjunct Saturn, so people can be a little critical. And I feel like watch out for the group conflicts and the financial disputes. Emotions might run a little bit high with that moon conjunct Pluto on Sunday night, but the truth is that transformation is inevitable. There is some kind of revolutionary energy brewing with the Mars-Pluto opposition, and it's demanding bold truth. I think the Mercury sextile Pluto and the moon is about being bold and like kind of calling a spade a spade. So if you're participating in Easter-related things, do it in the morning, okay? And use the morning for clarity and planning, but stay clear of conflicts in the evening. Focus on empowerment, not trying to control things. Because if we're trying to control things with Sun square Pluto, where there's going to be some power and control issue going on with a man in our life or a father figure or a husband or a leader, you're going to see somebody who's going to be making some pretty crazy demands about, I want this and I want that. And then the reaction, like the markets are just going to, they're going to swing all over the place. It's going to be crazy. Curious to see what happens here. So that's the week in a nutshell. You guys will have to come back and let me know some of your Easter stories or your Sunday stories, even if you aren't celebrating Easter. What happens? What goes down for you? What do you end up kind of recognizing? And where are you kind of between a rock and a hard place? Remember that the planet that's the focal point of the T is the planet that is really needing to be best integrated, right? So Sun in Taurus says, I want food, I want pleasure, I want to be comfortable, I want to take my time. If you're noticing that you're getting kind of cranky, in this next week, let's say like Sunday into early next week, I would be like, do you need a nap? Are you tired? Are you hungry? Have you taken some time to ground yourself out? Because we could be finding that we could be a little bit more reactionary or kind of triggered by people if we aren't actually doing the creature comfort things, or if we're in a space where we're not practicing healthy self-esteem, or we're not actually really focusing on what's most important. We're letting other people kind of get our goat. Definitely leave me your stories. I'm curious to hear what happens. I feel like it's been like, how many Sundays has it been now? So at some point, I'm sure somebody will count, but I feel like the last 6 weeks, every Sunday, there is one really heavy aspect that happens. And I'm like, come on, universe. All right. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about just a reminder about where Mars is now. So now Mars is back in Leo. So you can go back, you can think about what was happening basically in the fall, kind of going into December, and then it retrograded back into Cancer. I like to use whole sign for my presentations for you guys, and you can do this because Mars is going to be at 0 degrees. So I recommend listening to your rising sign first to kind of see exactly where Mars is, which house it's in. That's going to show you what's getting lit up. You're going to want to lean into some of the trines with Mercury and Neptune and Aries for inspiration and guidance. Watch out for the opposition to Pluto, and also some of the squares that we're going to see with the Sun ingress into Taurus. Now, as a reminder, if you happen to have Leo, Sun, Moon, or Rising, this is going to be impacting you because Mars is coming into your sign, especially if you're the early degrees. But at some point between now and mid-June, you'll see Mars go through some of your guys' placements. And if you are an Aries rising, you're ruled by Mars, your chart ruler is on the move. If you're a Scorpio rising, your chart ruler is on the move. Scorpio rising, watch out. Watch out this week with the Mars-Pluto opposition and the Sun square. That's going to get colorful too. All right, we're going to start first with my Aries and my Aries risings. What's going on, guys? You're going to be experiencing Mars returning back into your 5th house. All right, so you are Mars. Mars represents you, your body, your action, the area of your life where you're most kind of involved. And then it's also connected to the 8th house of transformation as well. So for you, Aries, the themes are going to be about creativity, romance, and self-expression in a nutshell, or children or dating. It's going to be about creative projects. So I predict, especially for you, with Mars like trine your Sun, Moon, or Rising, Neptune in your sign, Mercury in your sign as well. This is very personal. This is going to be about really Mars coming in and it's like lighting up your joy sector. And this is sparking some kind of passion. It can be a new romance. It could be a hobby. It could be just playtime. As it was retrograde the last couple of months, it was about really, I think, doubting your authenticity, doubting a romantic situation, a disconnection with a lover, maybe with a child, reassessing your home situation. And now it's like you're ready to shine. So I do expect bold romantic moves or creative breakthroughs. Just watch for ego clashes with partners. That can definitely be a theme. Obviously, Mars will oppose Pluto. So this is more about your audience, your friends, your networks, like that kind of stuff. There can be some intensity with other people. Maybe your friends are going through some crisis. And you're also going to see that it's going to come into a square with the sun at some point. So it's more kind of financial stuff, like your financial goals, what you're hoping to achieve and desire versus what other people want. And I would just say, really channel this energy into a passion project. Lead with your heart, not with pride, but focus on love and avoid drama by, I think, celebrating other people's wins too. Like when you have Mars in your 5th house, you can be really self-consumed with what I'm creating, what I love, what I'm doing. But it's also about sharing that with other people and like being able to encourage and inspire other people along the way. Good luck, Aries. We've got Taurus and Taurus rising. What's up, Taurus? We're going to be seeing the Mars ingress back into the sign of Leo in your 4th house. And if you happen to have 0 to about 5 degrees of Taurus and lunar rising, you're going to be feeling the impacts of some of the transit a little bit more intensely this week with the lunar transits, with the sun going into Taurus. So one thing you need to know is that the 4th house is all about like your home, your family, the past, emotional security. Okay, so it's about that stuff. And you have Mars connecting to your 12th house, which is hidden or your subconscious. It can also be what's private. And Mars is also connected to your 7th house of relationships, partnerships, and other people. So there can be a sense of you going back and forth and wrapping up situations on the home front that involves family, that involves partnerships, that involves working as a team. There could have been some unexpected twists and turns and changes that were happening kind of behind the scenes in your private life. So I'm predicting that with Mars going into your 4th house, on one hand, it's energizing your roots and is really urging you to kind of like either renovate, move, or assert boundaries at home. The retrograde probably stirred up some family tension, and now you're kind of claiming your space with confidence. And this is about watching for stubborn standoffs with loved ones. The issue that I have is that Mars and Pluto both rule your 7th house of relationships. Okay, so now with Mars in the 4th house, if you have to move, if you have to make a change, if somebody is coming to visit, if somebody's unhappy with something, that something is going to have to be dealt with. And it really pays to have a to-do list at home if you can help it. But Mars in opposition to Pluto means that there is someone or something that is disturbing your peace at home or emotionally, which is also creating some kind of like career tension. So it could be a partner that's in mood. It could be a home, renovation project, and it's like kind of keeping you from work, or you're, having to kind of work with a partner on it, and it's like a little frustrating. And you will see the sun go into your sign and square Pluto and also Mars, which means like slow and steady wins the race this week, Taurus. Okay, you can't rush some major transformation at home or on the career sector. Check in with yourself, check in with your body. I think that this might be about like maybe redecorating, or, this can be about focusing on a way that you can better kind of express your vibe at home. And I would say you can communicate boldly, but try to do it kindly with family. And you want to ground yourself in like cozy rituals. And like I said, have a to-do list so that way you can navigate kind of the balancing act. Good luck. We've got Gemini and Gemini rising. What's up, Gemini? Mars is returning into the sign of Leo. It's going to be in your natal 3rd house. Mars is connected to your friends, your groups, your goals, your allies. It's also connected to health, habits, wellness, your coworkers, and routine or pets. Now, Mars in the 3rd house, this is revisiting some of the themes that you have seen since the end of last year. When it comes to communication, it can be learning. It can also be about community. Maybe it's about cars, siblings, or neighbors. It can also mean that some kind of walking routine resumes, or some kind of, group project or group communications resume. Now, Mars coming back into this house is really supercharging your voice. Okay, that's really what this is about. So you might notice there's some fiery debates that are kind of going on over the next couple of weeks. You might notice that you're more willing to kind of pitch something and be bold, or maybe there's opportunities to be kind of teaching a group or working with a group in some way. The retrograde, I think, was really about kind of clarifying your message, and now you feel more unstoppable mentally. Like now you're like, okay, now I know what I'm going to say or how I'm going to do it. Yes, we can see some sibling or neighbor drama that can flare up. So just try to stay diplomatic on this one. Try to focus on what's best for the team, especially when it comes to scheduling and communications at work or with family. This might be a time that you're feeling more inclined to be like, okay, now I have figured out, I've planned it all out. And this is how I'm going to start my YouTube channel, or I'm going to start my blog or my podcast. Maybe you have figured out just exactly how you're going to plan a trip, and you're going to be scheduling everything and including other people and kind of sending your friends or your family the itinerary, right? That kind of stuff. Just pause. I know you're going to be more confident, but pause before reacting so that way you're avoiding arguments. And I say this because Mars will oppose Pluto. So likely it's going to be like arguments over, educational pursuits, legal pursuits, philosophical or, cultural debates, things about health, things about work and productivity. There could be tension that you can have with teachers, mentors, lawyers. So not a good time to be starting anything legally. And with Mars in opposition to Pluto, trying to force or rush either an education or a travel pursuit is not going to go very well, because likely with the Sun square in your 12th house, there's going to be something that's going to come out of the blue that's going to impact your ability to make everything go according to plan. So, try to be flexible and communicate well under pressure if you can help it. Good luck, Gemini. We've got Cancer and Cancer rising. What's up, Cancer? I bet you are so glad to have Mars out of your sign. So that's done. That's over with. Mars has now moved on. It's graduated. It has moved into Leo. It is now in your second house, which is very much connected to, obviously, your finances, your values, your self-worth. This is where money can kind of burn a hole in your pocket. So be mindful of that. But if you've been experiencing like a bit of a shortage on cash, or you haven't felt as great when it comes to your confidence or your self-esteem, you could find that it actually regains. Mars is connected to your work, whether that's your reputation out in the world, relationship with bosses, your career. It's also connected to children, creativity, passions, and self-expression or romance. So watching Mars come back into your second house for me feels like now you're like, okay, I've been working on my self-esteem. I've been working on my finances. Now Mars is ready to really heat up your second house financial zone. So some of you guys might be pushing to boost your income. Some of you guys just might notice you're more hungry than usual. Others are going to be splurging on luxuries. And for some of you guys, it's like, okay, I've been working hard. I deserve this. And for others, it's I'm spending money on my business because of the connection to the fifth house, or on a hobby, or on a child. I think the retrograde may expose some insecurities about your worth, or maybe you had to slow down in your cash, but now you're demanding more of what you deserve. So just be careful and avoid impulsive spending or any ego-driven purchases, especially considering Mars will oppose Pluto. Pluto is going to be about money owed. It's going to be about like your credit card statement, or it's going to be about joint savings or joint spending you have with a partner. Maybe there's been a back and forth you've been having with somebody over, an inheritance, a will, an estate, a tax matter, an insurance matter. Maybe you haven't been on the same page as a partner when it comes to spending. And so you might be full steam ahead with wanting to make a purchase or spend something, but somebody might be saying to you, hold on a second. Why did you spend that much? Why did you put this on the credit card? Well, we need to be paying something off or paying something down. And you will see with the square to the sun that there can be a dispute over money that involves either a group of people, like people you work with, or with like a group of friends. You guys all go out to eat. Somebody's like saying, hey, well, I'll split it. And somebody's like, what? That's not fair. That kind of stuff can kind of happen. So watch out for like group dynamics and money stuff, because that can definitely kind of come up. But I feel like for you guys, something that you can do during this time is you can negotiate a raise, or you can launch a side hustle. I would just be saying invest in quality, not in flash, and really affirm your value daily. Good luck, Cancer. Now we've got Leo and Leo rising. You guys are in the hot seat. Leo, Mars is back in your sign. I guess the positive, and there are many positives to this, Leo, is that it's no longer your 12th house, okay? Where maybe you've been in, kind of isolation, or maybe you've been, traveling in a foreign land, or you've been healing, or you've been kind of just in hermit mode. With Mars in your sign, pedal to the metal. Now it's like about taking action. It might make you feel like you've got a little extra energy. You might feel a little feisty, a little combative. But if you have something to put that energy into, if you're physically active, if you're working up a sweat, if you're also focusing on learning, planning, and also your belief system or teaching or traveling, something like that can actually be a really great outlet. Now, Mars is connected to your 9th house of teaching, traveling, legality, and your beliefs. It's also connected to your 4th house of home, family, and living situations. So Some of you guys have been hiding out, trying to figure out, am I traveling? Am I going back to school? Am I going to be moving? What's going on? And you haven't really felt like you can make a decision. Now with Mars in the first house, number one is you want a morning routine, okay? Number two is pay attention to your body. Heat, bumps, bruises, scars, burns, those kinds of things, they can happen with Mars on your ascendant. And you may feel rushed. Don't rush. Don't speed. Don't, notice where people are kind of getting you worked up. Don't do this. We want to really focus on your identity. We want to be confident. We want to be focusing on leadership. I feel like this is a glow up for you because it's back and it's also in your sign. So, I think that the retrograde was really kind of forcing some kind of introspection, and now you're ready to lead and shine. This is like now your butterfly phase. You've been in your cocoon phase. Now you're coming out of your cocoon and you're like in a butterfly. So you can be looking and feeling and carrying yourself very different. Expect attention and also opportunities. Watch for overconfidence that can spark conflicts. Your presence is very magnetic with Mars on your ascendant, so I would just say use it wisely. And this can be a time where maybe you are, refreshing your style. Maybe you're taking bold risks. Just stay humble and exercise to channel this energy appropriately. Mars will oppose Pluto in your 7th house, which for all of my Leo risings has been a back and forth with someone, whether it's with a spouse, a client, a friend. Maybe you felt like people have been more combative or destructive towards you in some way, or kind of slandering you or starting drama. When the sun, your ruler, comes into your 10th house and it squares Mars and it also squares Pluto, it means, well, you have the opportunity to shine and be a leader and choose peace and productivity and letting your work speak for itself. Don't let insecurities come out because they can get very loud and there can be sparks that you can have with another person throughout that transit. Think about what happened at the beginning of the year. Good luck. All right, we've got Virgo and Virgo rising. You guys will be experiencing Mars transit into the sign of Leo. It's going through your natal 12th house. And this can be a little bit more private for my Virgo risings because the 12th house is subconscious. So whether it's like your spiritual practice, it's closure, it's healing, it's isolation, doing something creative and private. It can also be some like whirlwind romance stuff that can be happening. It's really interesting with Leo in the 12th house. Now, Mars is connecting to your 8th house of change, other people's money, also psychological shifts, anything relating to spirituality, occultism, endings. And Mars is connected to the mind, so communication, learning. You may receive some information like in a dream about what's about to change, or some insight about, something new coming into your life. You might find that meditation or journaling is very helpful, that therapy is very helpful. But I think with Mars in the 12th house, sometimes we're dealing with repressed anger. Sometimes we are having nightmares. These things happen because it's stirring up your inner world. So there is something that has been kind of hidden that might be now starting to kind of show itself. And like it could be hidden desires, but it could also be that repressed anger I was talking about. And the retrograde, I feel like, was really about revealing some of your buried fears. And now you'll heal through introspection, okay, or creative outlets. Just watch out for burnout. Watch out for self-sabotage. That can happen here as well. I would be meditating, journaling, creating, anything to process your emotions. Create art to kind of express the unseen. So if you play an instrument, you write music, if you paint, if you dance, these are good things now. And rest to recharge your spirit. And this can also be about self-undoing. So Mars being here is like if you're doom scrolling, if you're excess shopping, like things like that. Maybe you're getting stressed out about a romantic situation, like do something creative and go and get some time in the sun. That can help you here as well. Okay. Good luck, my Virgos. All right, we've got Libra and Libra rising. I always laugh when I see this because I'm a Libra rising and I've seen this manifest for sure. So Mars is now returning back to your 11th house, Libra, and this is about your networks, your friends, your audience, your people. And you have Mars connected to your relationships. This can be professional, it can be romantic, it can be your one-on-one relationships. It can also be about just spending time with others. And Mars is connecting to money, resources, and value, okay? So basically, Mars going into your 11th house is going to be bringing up the themes of action when it comes to friends, groups, and your goals, right? Your aspirations. So it can become a very social time. Your social scene will get very energized with Mars in this house. You'll see rallying friends, pushing for group goals, moving forward, making plans to go and hang out with groups of people. I think the retrograde really kind of exposed maybe where there was some like disjointed things going on in friendships or disloyal connections. Maybe you needed to reevaluate your goals in some way. And now it's about leading with authenticity. Now, ego clashes can happen with teams or online. That is very possible. Because, teams, whether that's, if you're playing on a team sport, for example, or if you work with a team at work, or if you've got a group of friends, there can be, some stuff kind of going on where there's some challenges. And I say this because Mars does dealing with problems head on, seventh house, and also the opposition to Pluto is brewing. So the fifth house is like your happiness, your creativity, the changes that you're making also in your expressive kind of creative process, maybe your children, your love life. Just once again, I always give you guys feedback. So as a Libra rising, I've seen it materialize as, I've had a lot of friends that have been going through a lot of stuff for the last couple of months. And it's been really interesting because it's some stuff that I went through personally. And then my friends went through it. And then my friends came back around and they were like, oh my God, like I didn't realize how difficult this was. And, we want to be there for you. And now we're going through it and we want to kind of like help you through that and vice versa. So in a way, it actually made some relationships stronger, right? So that's good. And also I'm seeing like my social life kind of like, I've got a bunch of plans for the next couple of months with like people coming into town and friends that I'm seeing. But this has also been you guys because I've seen a lot of people who have been going back and forth, leaving comments and getting kind of feisty with other people about things. And you guys have been making comments about changes that I'm going through, how I create content, what my thumbnails look like, what I look like, what my hair looks like, what I'm wearing, all that stuff, and honestly, I'm a good sport about it. I don't take anything personally. If you guys didn't see my Q&A video that I put out just a couple days ago, go and watch it. I address all of it. But that's what I've seen is that some people want to kind of in the comment section get a little spicy and stuff. And for the most part, you guys are super positive. But that has been the Mars Pluto is that some people feel that they need to protect me, in some way, which I appreciate. But I'm okay. I promise. I would say the squares to the sun in the 8th house is going to be a lot about how you're planning something. There's something that's going on that's going to be collaborative. It's going to be a group thing. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a project or there's something that involves other people. And it's going to be a back and forth that's like, now Libra, you're supposed to receive. Okay. You can do stuff for other people. You can show up for other people, but you're supposed to receive. Sun in the 8th house. People are going to send you invitations. People are going to be saying, hey, we're going to cover it. We're going to pay for it. We'd love to have you there. Your job is just to receive. That's all you really got to do. But this is also financial for you because this is where you take risks. This is where you cash out. And this is where there's lots of changes going on financially with the collective. So I would just avoid any political or financial debates or discussions with people. It can definitely get a little heated here. But for the most part, I think the sun in your 8th house is good because this is going to be some kind of financial change. Maybe you're receiving from a partner. Maybe you're kind of being blessed with something. I don't know. Maybe it's just being blessed with friendship. But I think it's going to be a time. And I would just say, host an event, join a cause, network boldly, but share the spotlight. And there can be some people who are feeling a little competitive or a little jealous over you with that opposition of Pluto in your 5th. Okay. Align with people who are going to uplift you, basically. Good luck, Libra. We've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. Ooh, Scorpio, your horoscope this week, it's on fire. Especially if you're an early degree Scorpio. So if you're like 0 to 5 degrees, hold on to your shorts because Mars is back in the sign of Leo. Mars rules your chart. So wherever Mars is where you are. And guess what? Mars likes being in the 10th house. And Mars is also connected to your 6th house. So I think this is like a nice, good, swift kick in the ass for Scorpio and Scorpio risings. Because what it's doing is it's saying, okay, it's time to get back out there, right? So the 10th house is going to be connected to your career, your reputation. It's about being an authority figure. It's about kind of being like a star, right? Like it's so funny to me that Scorpio risings have Leo midheaven because you guys don't want the attention, but you get it. And Mars is really catapulting your ambitions. And this is thrusting you into leadership or public roles. Now, the retrograde was about clarifying your professional desires. Where am I going? What am I doing? What do I believe in? Now that it's coming back into your 10th house, you will chase recognition and you'll get it too. You'll see rivalries with bosses or peers that might spark, so be strategic. But because Mars is not just you, but it's also connected to your 6th house, it's like if you're in a position where you're a boss or you're a manager, you're learning how to get more work done by delegating tasks. You're also learning that scheduling, committing to a routine, staying on task, having a good assistant, whatever, being healthy, and also being productive in that sense is going to help you be more, I think, online and just like checked in. The challenge here, I think that's kind of coming up is that both Mars and Pluto are opposing each other. So Scorpio, I want you to go back and think about the beginning of the year. What happened the first couple of days of 2025? Where was there some stressful situation where you felt like you were torn between what was happening, and what goals you had for your professional life and how that was kind of clashing with what was going on with your home life? And honestly, it looked stressful. And what's colorful about it this time around is now the sun's going to go into Taurus, which does represent maybe, your professional partnerships. Maybe it represents your relationship with a spouse or a romantic partner, is pushing for you to be more bold, dynamic, assertive in your career. And it's also squaring off with Pluto. So you need help, Scorpio. The 7th house could be a partner that calms you down or says, hey, we can handle it, we've got it, or keeps their cool. It could be a therapist, right? It could be a business partner who's like, okay, so you have these goals and things that you want to change, at work. Well, then this is what we need to change at home, or this is what needs to shift, with our family dynamic. That's the kind of stuff that's going to come up. Watch for power struggles with relationships and also people at work. I think that's it's going to come up. You're going to see it. But I feel like you may also feel like now you're about ready to launch a project or a big idea and showcase your talents more fearlessly. Just avoid power struggles by focusing on the results. That's my advice. Good luck, Scorpio. Let me know how that goes. That's a colorful one. All right, so we've got Sag and Sag rising. What's up, Sag? Mars is back in Leo in your 9th house, and I feel like so many Sag risings are going to be so thankful for this, because if you felt like you have been on hold and you have not been able to travel or do anything, that opportunity is going to be presenting itself very soon. So for you guys, you see Mars coming back into Leo. It's going into the 9th house, which is all about adventure. It's about beliefs. It's about expansion, higher education, getting on flights, going places, learning things. And Mars is connected both with the 5th house of having fun, creativity, holidays, getting away. And also it's connected to the 12th house of foreign lands. This is also the subconscious, anything in regards to healing and having some rest and recuperation. So many Sag risings are long overdue for a trip, which is your guys' favorite thing to do. And with Mars in the 9th house, it's really fueling this sense of like wanderlust. And, there's more of a thirst for truth. So travel, study, or any new bold philosophies. While it was retrograde, it was in a difficult part of your chart. It was in the 8th house. So there was a sense of questioning what does need to change emotionally or financially or at home, and maybe you were questioning your direction with, how do I change my home? How do I change my joint finances? How do I, relocate or go to school somewhere else? So now you can explore that passion more freely. Just watch for like dogmatic arguments or overzealous risks. Sometimes there's unexpected things that happen we don't see coming when it comes to travel or when it comes to children or romantic partners. And obviously Mars is squaring off with Pluto. So I do feel like there can be some challenges, maybe, traveling some places. Like, I think traveling will get better for you guys actually in May. I think that I would be saying, well, you can start the process of planning, maybe do something in May, not the end of April. Or, you're planning to do something in June, July, or August. That's fine too. But communication pressure and stress, maybe conflicts with teachers, there could be some legal issues or issues communicating with siblings or neighbors can definitely pop up here. Now, to make it a little bit more complicated, it's also going to be squaring the sun in the 6th house, which tells me there's either a health matter or there is going to be a job or work matter that's actually keeping you from being able to go and have this freedom. So you might be like, well, I'm having to, take care of someone or something, or I am having to, deal with some health related things, or I can't get work off. There's going to be something that's going to be 6th house related where you're having to do work and make a sacrifice. And I know that you really want to, get out there and be free, but you have some stuff that you have to kind of get in order first. So what do? Communicate, strategically plan. You can be doing this stuff basically from, May on. And I do think that you guys are going to get the break or the breakthrough that you have been hoping in regards to your ninth house thing. So you will be able to plan a trip or dive into learning. I think this is about sharing your vision very generously with other people as well. Just stay open to other people's perspectives. Stay out of those combative debates with people about culture or about, your belief system or philosophies. You're not going to win some of those. You're going to see that there's going to be a lot of back and forth. Especially you'll see this with people either on like a university level, a legal level, or at work. Okay. Good luck. We've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. What's up, Capricorn? You have got Mars back in Leo in the 8th house. And Mars is connected to your friends, allies, goals, networks. And it's also associated with your home, family, the past, ends of situations, and your private life. So good news is Mars is no longer in your opposite sign, right? So that's nice. So you're going to kind of see some of the tension with relationships or family dynamic relationships kind of calm down a little bit. But the 8th house is kind of like a grab bag of different things. It is about intimacy. It's about transformation, shared resources. So think like debt, loans, inheritances, wills, insurance, taxes. That kind of stuff kind of falls into this. And I feel like a lot of this has been about your goals in working out or working through like a home or family matter. So it could be taking care of an estate, reaching a settlement with selling a house or a divorce. It could mean that, you're trying to find the ways to kind of clear up old debt. So that way you have, more opportunity to maybe, get a mortgage or move. Your financial goals have shifted in some way, but there's been changes with other people's money. So now with Mars back in your 8th house, the positive is that Mars does well in this 8th house. It likes being there. It's at home there. Even though it's in a sign that inconjuncts or quincunxes you, I do feel like that you can see things rapidly progress forward. However, the 2nd house is our money and what we own or possess, and the 8th house is other people's stuff. And it's also about repayments of sorts. So on one hand, this transit can deepen connections and there can be, definitely sparks of passion, but I think there can also be some power struggles in relationships, particularly around money. And the retrograde has been exposing some of this stuff. It's been bringing some of this stuff up, maybe trust issues, maybe some financial challenges, and it had you kind of demanding transparency or like loyalty. So now financial moves like investments or debt repayment will gain momentum because Mars is direct. You just want to avoid any control battles, basically. I do think that it's a lot of like, well, what is mine and what is yours that's going on? And I don't know if it's over like, whose home you're selling and what percentage you get, or, how much assets are going to be divided up so that you can pay your cost of living, or if you're expected to take care of an expense for a family member or a relative. That kind of stuff comes up in your chart. But I think that now that it's there, it's going to deepen the bonds, and it's going to do that through honesty. So you might find that like research, is a good idea when it comes to financial options. You're going to be doing your due diligence to find the best solution for you, choosing carefully, and also embrace vulnerability for growth. And definitely a lot of you guys are going to be like, okay, am I getting paid or am I having to pay something out? And that's been the back and forth that you have basically seen this entire time with Mars and Pluto. But if there's been a storyline of trying to sort that out, it may be finally coming to an end. Good luck. We've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Mars returning to the sign of Leo. It's in your opposite sign in the 7th house, which deals with relationships, partnerships, therapists, spouses, significant others, business partners, your marketplace, all of that stuff. So Mars deals with work and also your career and your sense of authority and your identity in the world. It's also connected to communications, emails, contracts, negotiations, traveling, that kind of stuff. So with Mars back in your 7th house, it's an interesting dynamic because on one hand, you can see relationships speed up, like suddenly something that's taken forever, to finally, develop in a romantic sense. Now it's like pedal to the metal, and it can be like a lot of togetherness. On the other hand, it can be about collaboration. It can be about trying to find balance. I have found when Mars is in the 7th house that partners are acting impulsively and they need their time. Like they are going to have a tendency to be a little bit more temperamental. They could rush through things. Maybe they just feel like they have more energy. Maybe they're a little bit sexier. Maybe they're a little bit more combative. It just depends. But it's going to heat up your relationship sector, and it's bringing passion or conflict with partners. So this can be business or romantic. Certainly, it's a lot of business stuff connecting to Mars, and also to the third house, where it's how you're communicating with them, right? Maybe now you've updated a website, or you have a new website so you can bring in more customers. Maybe you have been reassessing where you stand with the business partnership and getting ready to issue new contracts, right? That can be happening as well. So it really depends, but I feel like the retrograde has been really revealing to you where there has been dynamics that have been out of balance. And now you're kind of asserting your needs more. And I feel like compromise is key to avoid showdowns. Now, the problem here is that a lot of you guys have actually said, well, actually, I had somebody who was like being very egotistical, or they were being selfish, or they weren't willing to change, and, they left, or we broke up, or somebody from the past came back. The retrograde could have brought somebody back. I attribute most of this to the fact that Mars has been in opposition to Pluto in your sign. Pluto in your sign means that you're like, I'm going through a change. I definitively want to change. I'm changing my identity, my career. I'm changing the way that I express myself. And that has brought some friction with other people, and likely some drama, because they may not like the fact that you're doing things differently and they're not getting the same reaction out of you. Or maybe you're realizing that you're not on the same path. And even though you want to evolve together, right, the opposition is saying there's some tension, and that this could be a final defining moment where there's something that's breaking off. Could be with a child or a younger person, Leo, just a romantic partner. It could also mean that this is with a creative collaboration or with a client. It's a little hard to avoid this. You're going to have to ask yourself what's been happening for the last couple of months. I feel like it is possible to communicate your desire clearly in relationships now that you have Mercury in your third house, and you can be talking about, here's what I'm doing, here's how I'm holding myself accountable, what are we doing together? And you can collaborate on bold projects, but we want to choose harmony over winning. We want to focus on diplomacy, and you might see just exactly who is and is not in your corner this week in your relationships or your business partnerships. And that is definitely going to happen with the square to the sun. That's telling me that it might actually be majorly impacting where you're living, who you're living with, where they're living, if they're coming back, or if this is the end. Good luck, my Aquariuses. And we have Pisces and Pisces rising. For you guys, you're going to be experiencing Mars returning to the sign of Leo in your natal 6th house. Obviously in a sign that inconjuncts or quincunxes you, so you don't really feel like you have a lot in common. But here's the good thing, right? Mars does well in the 6th house. Malefic planets like Mars, Saturn, does well in the 6th house. This is where Mars wants to get things done, right? So Mars is connected to your belief system, travel, education, and philosophy. It's also connected to money and anything in regards to personal values, resources, or self-esteem. Mars returning and coming back into the 6th house is going to be about work. It's going to be about health. It's going to be about your routines. So really, I feel like this is about Mars re-energizing your daily grind. And you might boost productivity. You might find that your fitness goals are coming back online. You might go back to a gym. You might go back to a doctor. And the retrograde, I think, has really been highlighting for a lot of Pisces risings, like where you've had burnout, like where you haven't maybe been in the right job, or maybe you needed to make some tweaks to your schedule. And now you're starting to streamline everything, but you're going to do it with a little bit more flair. So what you want to watch for is there can be some stress or some like coworker clashes. We need to watch for being a little bit more accident prone, more prone to maybe having digestional issues, inflammation, challenges maybe with clashes with people at work. But for the most part, I feel like that you'll be able to get a lot of stuff done. Mars went back into Cancer, where maybe you were focusing more on creative hobbies, projects, dating, and children. Maybe you got some of that stuff taken care of, so now you can kind of get back to work. I do feel like this is about revamping your schedule or your workout routine. And I would advise you to just tackle your tasks with confidence, find ways to make it fun, balance effort with self-care, and know that this is about what you're learning about health, what you're learning also about productivity, what you're learning about balancing your budget and your resources, and potentially making some tweaks to either how you're spending or how you're eating, because of Mars's connection to your second house. You'll feel good that you're getting stuff done. You're going to feel also that you're learning a bunch of new tips and tricks and hacks to be able to make time to have fun. And that way it's not all work and no play, right? Anyway, watch for that opposition to Pluto. You know, that can definitely show you where if you have healthy habits and routines, it can actually be helpful in kind of conquering some of your fears, overcoming some subconscious issues, and also feeling like you're having better mental health. Good luck, Pisces. Well, guys, that is the week in a nutshell. Obviously, you know, all of the emotional stuff, the fiery stuff, Mars coming back in to steal the show, and the setup for a rather intense end of April. But if I can tell you guys one thing, it's this. By the time it gets to the end of the month, things are going to calm down. Things are finally going to start to settle in May. I'm so excited. Come on, all the planets are direct. I mean, once we get out of this opposition, I feel like we're good to go. This week's all about leaning into your courage, expressing your truth, and letting transformation kind of lead the way. Drop your rising sign in the comments section below. I'd love to hear from you guys. How are you feeling with all of this? What are the vibes? Where are you getting deja vu from some of the Mars-Pluto stuff? Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell button if you want to be alerted as to when I have new videos. For my weekly forecasts, you guys can also join me this Friday. I'm going to be here doing live tarot readings, 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. That will be 4 p.m. Pacific and 7 p.m. Eastern. Come hang out with me, get your cards read. I love to chat with you guys. And we'll be doing more videos throughout the week. I'm going to see if I can get horoscopes out this week. I feel kind of like maybe I can do it. So if I can get it out for you guys this week, I will. So we can kind of just get ready for May, because mentally I'm already ready for May. So with that being said, I'll see you guys all very soon. Enjoy your week, and you guys take care.